This is more about living in the time of the coronavirus epidemic. Okay, to recap, the trumpet finally called for the protesters to go home. We love you, we thank you, we know they stole the election, please go home. The PM gave a speech denouncing the mob, the chaos, the threat to democracy. He called upon God to bless us all. DC cops, Maryland State Police, National Guardsmen, ATF, and FBI were all called in to disperse the crowd. The mob. It was important to call it a mob. The woman who was shot, a veteran, died. It looked for a while that it was going to erupt into something very bad. I would have occupied that building. I loathe all of those suits, those sanctimonious politicians who called upon God and law and order and democratic ideals. Free speech, protest, sure, but no insurrection, no mob rule. Oh, how they preached. They are the problem, all of them, the swamp, and they will win, and win big. Wait till the PM takes over. Now, with the outcome in Georgia, there is no break, nothing to slow them down, for at least 2 years. They will take full advantage of this. They blame the events of the day on the trumpet, and it is true that he practically called for it to happen and approved it when it did, then had to call for it to end when it looked like it could turn ugly. Always a battler, his leadership turned ugly as it came to an end. All in all, it could have resulted in much worse. It was a wild day for democracy. And now it is coming down, crashing down, on the head of the trumpet. He is to blame. Every politician in the country, including members of his cabinet, and the field mouse, and Fancy Bulldozy, she wants to impeach him now, again. They are all calling for his immediate removal from office. And the PM is on his high horse, riding it hard. He's making a speech every day, establishing himself as the one restoring order. Today he denounced the trumpet and the events of yesterday. He solemnly called it an attack of thugs, insurrectionists, domestic terrorists. He called it one of the darkest days in our history, and he laid it all of the blame for it on the trumpet. And the trumpet is to blame. He handed this over to the dummy craps. The PM is all about honor, law, integrity, and God. He said the government was sacred. The Capitol building was sacred. Voting is sacred. He kept at it. Sacred, sacred, sacred. All desecrated by the trumpet and his gang of thugs, despicable people. So the trumpet, refusing to concede, refusing to play the game by the rules, he has completely discredited himself, and along with that, everything he has done. The PM said that from the outset, the trumpet had a contempt for democracy and a contempt for the media. He called them the enemy of the people, a tactic, the PM claimed, of dictators and autocrats all over the world. Brace yourself. The dummy craps will control all 3 branches of the government, the House, the Senate, and the executive, and more than that, they will be acting as the antidote to the poison that was the trumpet. He brought it on himself with his stubborn refusal to accept the result of the election. The problem there is that he and his supporters believe that the voting totals were severely rigged in several states. They can't get past vague irregularities to any serious, specific proof of fraud, but they are certain that it took place. In 1960, Nixon was sure that Daley fixed Cook County, but he gave in, he said, for the good of the country. The trumpet could not do that. His last hope was that the vice trumpet would shut down the Electoral College total, and when he failed to do that, the crowd reacted and overreacted and fell into charges of vandalism, trespass, violence, mob, thugs, terrorists, and after that, any mud would stick. And that mud was besmirching the PM's sacred places and policies. So he rides in, like St. George, having just slayed the dragon. The PM will now pass as a hero who came in the nick of time to save his beloved country. That's his narrative now, handed to him by the trumpet.